Today we're looking at creating a digital heritage item in your Mukurtu site. So the digital heritage items are kind of like a story that provides context and information behind your cultural items. And they really form the key browsing and the key interaction aspect with the content on your site. So you can, if you want, go through the dashboard and there'll be a button there to add digital heritage. But at the moment, I'm going to use this button, handy button up in the top nav bar here that says add digital heritage. So I'm just clicking on that. And I've been brought to a create digital heritage page. Just briefly to tell you what I'm doing, I'm going to create what I call a minimally viable digital heritage item, sort of filling in the bare minimums that you really have to. There's a few fields. And then I'm going to go back and fill in a lot of that extended metadata. So we can look at that more in depth as we go. But starting with the basics, you got to have a title. I already know what I'm working with today, and you are going to see soon. I'm going to title this Mount Baker. You have to choose a community and a protocol to add your digital heritage item to. Under community, there's going to be a little drop-down box, and it's only going to show me the communities that I'm allowed to add materials to. So I have to be a member, and I have to have the right user permissions to be able to add an item. I'm going to add this to my Mukurtu demo community, because that's what I've been working in all today with these videos. Then you also have to choose a protocol. Same thing, it's another drop-down menu, and you have to choose a community first, because depending on that, you're going to see different protocols. So it's not going to show all the protocols that I'm a part of. It's only going to show the protocols that are part of this community. I'm going to choose the public protocol. I created that earlier. And if you want, you can add more than one protocol. At this point, I can only add another protocol that's part of that same first community that I chose. So I can go ahead. I'm going to add that to both protocols. And you see if I try to add another one, these are both grayed out because I've already added them. You can't add the same protocol more than once. So I've added my communities and protocols. The next thing to do is check your sharing settings. So there's two options, any or all. If you select any, if a site member is part of one or the other, or both, but if one or the other of these protocols, they will be able to see the item. So if I'm part of the demo community public protocol, but not part of the demo community only protocol, if I chose any, I would be able to see that item. If you want it to be a bit more restrictive and you choose all, that means that a member has to be part of, in this case, both protocols, or if there's more than two, of all the protocols that you've chosen. So in this case, I'd have to be a member of both the public protocol and the community-only protocol. For now, I'm going to leave it with any. Next is choosing a category. These are those site-wide categories that are going to show up for every community on your site. You want something that's relatively general. These are decisions you have made earlier. So you can't create new categories at this point. You can only select from existing ones. Right now, I'm going to add landscapes. And now the next thing that I'm adding is not technically required. I'm going to add a media asset. You can have digital heritage items without a media asset. That you don't have to have an image or a video or an audio clip or a document. You could have just a plain text-only digital heritage item. For the most part, though, you are going to be working with things that have some kind of media attached. And I want to show you how to add that. So over on the right side of your digital heritage item page, creation page, we call this the media or the scald tray. And this collects all of the media items that you've uploaded. If you have to add a new media item, you can use one of these four icons down at the bottom, but I've already added my item. So I'm going to click on this list icon here, and when I click on it, it expands out. This list here shows you all of the items in your media library in order of recency. So the most recently added or edited ones are going to be up at the top. If you have an item that's tucked way, way back, it's been added a long time ago, and you don't want to scroll through them all, next to search, there's another little toggle right up here. If you click on that, you can search. So if you were good and added some metadata to your media asset, like I recommended earlier, you can search for the title or the author and add it that way. In this case, I was just working with the file I'm going to add, so it's at the top. So I'm just going to shrink the search back down. And to bring an item over from your media tray, it's really just drag and drop. So I'm clicking on the image itself and holding that click down. It says drop a resource from the Scald Media Library here. I'm going to drop that in. That's just going to take a minute. I see a little thumbnail preview. A little bit of metadata is showing up. That's going to show bigger on the site. That's just a preview. To hide this media tray again, I'm going to click on the list, and that shrinks it back down out of our way. So we filled in our bare required elements. We've added a title. I've added an optional media asset, optional but very common. I've chosen one community. I've chosen protocols. You can choose one or more. I have added sharing settings because I have more than one protocol. You really need to pick those carefully. I've chosen one category. You can have more if you want. I'm leaving the other fields blank. So I want to show you what a basic media item looks like. Sorry, a basic digital heritage item looks like. I've clicked Save down at the bottom, and I have a confirmation message. The digital heritage item has been created. I'm just going to click on the X and hide that. This is a very, like I said, a minimally viable item. You can see I have the title that was required. I have the community over on the right side, the Mukurtu demo community. I have the two protocols. One of those was required. I have a site-wide category that I've chosen, and the author, which in this case is the user who was logged in when this was added. That's my username. One of the really neat things about the media asset that I chose is, if you remember when I was creating it, I added some extra information. I added some of that embedded metadata that I said is stuck with that image, and then it's going to be carried around and displayed whenever that image is used. So you can see my image here. If you click on it, I'll go back in a second. If you click on it, it shows you the full size. I can actually zoom in and see it full resolution. It's a pretty high-res photo, but that'll let you view it full size. And then you can see right under here, it says image metadata in bold. I am just going to hover my mouse over that, and it pops up with all of that embedded image metadata, that I entered earlier. So it has an identifier, which I said was Michael Wynn 2015-001, the date the photo was taken, the creator, the author, my very, very brief description saying this photo was taken while snowshoeing, a little internal search keyword, just the plain text location of Mount Baker. I had chosen a Creative Commons license to apply, and the site-wide category of landscape. So that is information. I didn't type that in, you saw. I only added a few other fields. I didn't type any of this right now. That's information that I entered earlier when I created the media asset. It's embedded with that image. So if I create another digital heritage item and use that image, this information is going to show up again. It's embedded. It's a really useful tool to keep that contextual information always present with your media items. That's your basic page, but it's not very interesting. It doesn't tell a story. I don't really know much other than I took this photo and I took it in February. So I want to go back in to edit the digital heritage item and add some more information. So you can always go back and edit your items. I'm just clicking on that edit tab. And I'm going to start by fleshing out this first page. You can see that we have up at the top a couple tabs, Mukurtu Essentials, which is what we've been working in. There's also Mukurtu Core, Rights and Permissions, Additional Metadata, and Relations. I'm going to go through these just one at a time. So I want to add a little bit more information. Actually, first, I think that this digital heritage item is useful not only for my demo community, but also another community. So I'm going to add it to another community. It's just take a second to load up. So earlier, I added the demo community and two protocols for my community one, but I can add more. So again, this drop-down menu is only going to show the communities that I'm a part of and that I want to add to. I'm going to add this to, let's say, community one, just to have something different. And again, you still have to pick a protocol with every community. Oops, sorry, that one doesn't have any protocols. It's an empty community that I built. The Michael Test community. So we have the Mukurtu demo. I'm also adding it to the Michael Test community. I'm going to choose another protocol. I'm going to add it to the community-only protocol, so it's strict in that one. Now, if you're adding more than one community, it's a good time to review your sharing settings. I've said that this item can be shared with members of any protocol. If I feel like it's getting a little too openly shared, you can restrict that. I'm going to leave that for the moment. I'm also going to add another category. I'm going to add it to the hiking and let's say the general category. Again, you're going to have a very different list of categories. Those are determined for your site. I want to add some creator information. So I'm going to add my name. I'm not going to add a contributor. In this case, I was the only person there. There wasn't somebody else taking a photo of me or anything. I'm going to add a date. The one thing to know about the date field is it's limited to 10 characters. They can be any character, so you could put summer, spring, winter, something like that, but it is only 10 characters. And I think that's all the fields that we have on the Mukurtu Essentials tab. Next is the Mukurtu Core, and this is the tab that has really all the descriptive narrative information. For material for a digital heritage item with some significant cultural or traditional background, you can add it here. I'm just going to add some very brief text so we can see what it looks like. This is a sample cultural narrative, but in reality, you would have more information ideally. And this is an example of traditional knowledge. Again, you would hopefully be able to provide a little more information than I'm doing now. And you can enter a more generic description. This photo was taken while snowshoeing in midwinter, but again, you can put whatever you want in there. Then at the bottom of this page, bottom of this tab rather, you can add some keywords. I'm going to add a few. I want to add mountain, let's say hiking, Mount Baker. So keywords are meant to be a little bit more specific than the site-wide categories. Users, when they're editing images or editing digital heritage items, can add keywords. The creation of categories is limited to administrators for those site-wide items. And something like Mountain Baker probably wouldn't be a very useful category because it's not going to apply, or it's not likely to apply, to every community on my site. It's a little too narrow. Likewise, hiking and mountain may be not useful. Earlier, I used landscape as the category because it's not unlikely that multiple communities would find that useful. All right, so I've added keywords, I've added a description, traditional knowledge, cultural narrative. The next tab is the rights and permissions. You can add publishing information. You can add rights information, and I'm going to say here, for use, please email Michael Wynn, and then I would put my email in there. That gives you a little bit of room to explain how something should be used, who to request permission for. You can use the drop-down menu here to add traditional knowledge labels. I'm going to add the TK non-commercial label. We're going to have more information on how to use labels and licenses in the future. This is just a brief overview. I'm also going to add a Creative Commons license. I'm going to say non-commercial share alike, so people cannot use an image for profit, but they can share it provided they keep this open sharing. Again, we can cover those in more detail if people are interested. The next tab is additional metadata, and this gets into a little bit more about the item itself. So the image here, well, I know it's an image. I know it's a JPEG file. I had that identifier that I've been using all the way throughout. There's no language. I could put, in this case, English, since all my text is in English. Well, why don't I do that? I'll list it as English. But if you have either an audio recording or text written in another language, you can include that there. Source is great if you've gotten it from either a larger collection or from another institution. Subject is useful for filling in some sort of main topics, main content. Transcription, again, if it's an audio or video recording, you may want to include a typed transcription to make it easy to search. One of my favorite features is location. If you know the latitude and longitude, or if you can find it, you can manually enter those here, but I want to add, whoops, that's not right. It's a little Google search box, and I'm typing in Mount Baker, and hey, it's pulling up Mount Baker in the zip code. So it's going to place a little pin on a map, which we're going to see later. You can move that pin around if you need, but I think this is pretty close to where I actually took the photo from. So I'm just going to leave that. You can add some textual description about the location. Photo is of a peak just east of Mount Baker. I didn't actually take a photo of Mount Baker. I wasn't on it, but I was nearby, so that's close enough at this point. That's everything on that. Whoops, sorry, I'm zooming in on the image. That's everything on that tab. And our last tab is relations. So relations are connections between items in different parts of your site. You can add a relation to a collection, an item, a community record, or a book page. Now, I know that I actually have another photo that I took on the same day. To do these, you search by name. So I know that this one was called just Baker because I did a very minimal record. Oh, hey, and it pops up. It gives me a little prompt box for anything that starts to match the text you enter in. I'm going to select Baker. I'm just going to do the one. I'm going to leave the others blank for now. The neat thing about these related items is they're bidirectional. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute, but I don't have to manually add a link back from that second item to this one. Okay, so we've gone through, we filled out some relations, some additional metadata, some rights and permission information. We've expanded on the Mukurtu core, and I've added a little bit more information to the Mukurtu essentials. So the last step is to save it. You always want to save your changes. You can preview and you can view the changes you're going to make, but I'm just going to go ahead and save. Great, now that we've saved, first thing we get is a confirmation message saying the digital heritage item has been updated. That's excellent to see. I'm just going to close that so we can see more of the screen. So just going down the digital heritage item from top to bottom, I added a description telling us a little bit about when the photo was taken, some sample cultural narrative and traditional knowledge. Like I said, I didn't add that much information, but ideally you would have more to include. I entered that location information, so it gave me the latitude and longitude. And if I zoom in on the map, you can see exactly where the pin is. Really neat for mapping. And I added a brief location description. One note I'd like to make about locations and mapping is if you are including very sensitive sites, something that maybe you don't want somebody to know the location of, as neat as this is, something you might not want to include, so use that carefully. The last thing I had added earlier was a related item. I'm just going to open this in a new tab, but it shows up at the bottom of the page now. And this is a different photo, and this is something I created earlier, but these were photos I took on the same day. I feel that there's a reason for them to be linked in the website, in my Mukurtu site. And when I'm looking at this one, you can see there's a bidirectional relationship back to my original item, which is really handy. So that's sort of the main content. And then down the right side of the page is all of our neat metadata. So earlier it was part of the Mukurtu demo community. I also added it to the microtest community. It's part of 3 different protocols now. That's all showing up. I added some extra categories. I added the general and hiking categories. Still part of the landscape. Those are those site-wide ones. Keywords are the user-generated keywords, so I manually entered those in. I didn't choose them from a list. The original date the photo was taken. The creator, the language, I added that. I added some rights information. I asked people to contact me if they want to use the photo. You can see this nice generated image of a traditional knowledge non-commercial license. Also the Creative Commons attribution non-commercial license that I added. That generic identifier that I've been using throughout. A little bit, it's an image, it's a JPEG, and again, the author information is still there. So that is a walkthrough of how to create and edit a digital heritage item. That's building on the earlier sessions where we saw some basic site up, including how to create communities, cultural protocols, and categories, and also how to upload media items, ending with this, how to create and edit your digital heritage items. Thank you for watching today. Hopefully you find that useful.